Thank you for joining us to the Educated Speaker Series. I am your host, Mr. Howard Fields. Before we introduce tonight's guest, I want to remind everyone that this is an interactive chat and you can interact with us using the hashtag ES Series. Again, we will be monitoring Twitter. Use the hashtag ES Series if you have any questions, comments, or want to contribute to tonight's conversation. But without further ado, I would like to introduce tonight's guest. She has 16 years in educational experience. She is the technology integration specialist in the Ladue School District, as well as a facilitator for code.org. She is a Google certified innovator as well as a trainer. She was named the National School Board's 20 to Watch in Ed Tech, METC Spotlight Educator, as well as, get this, the mother of 5 boys who you will not hear throughout tonight's webcast. That person is Mrs. Patrica Brown. Mrs. Brown, how are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I am blessed. We are so happy for you to be with us tonight. As we go into 2017 and education and technology, and they begin to work together more and more. For a lot of people, coding is just a foreign word. For others, they think it's the newest buzzword in education. So can you please help us clarify how we can use this computer science skill in our classrooms as well as in our schools?
Absolutely. First off, thank you so much for having me tonight. I am excited about learning and sharing with everyone. I just want to jump right in and get everybody started. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And I will make my presentation available to everyone at the end. So feel free to use this as a resource. As Mr. Fields explained, I have quite a few accolades and things that I have accomplished. But most importantly, like he described, I am a mom and chief of 5 boys. And so part of why I do what I do is because of my family, because of my children. My boys include twins and a 16-year-old and a 2-year-old. And they have always been very much involved in computer science and STEM and coding. And so because I wanted to provide those experiences for my own children, I decided to develop it more and be able to provide experiences for other students as well. Probably heard of the Hour of Code, and we just finished celebrating Computer Science Education Week last week or a couple weeks ago. And so part of that is the Hour of Code. And the whole concept is if you get kids engaged and want to be interested in coding for 1 hour, you're basically setting a foundation and getting them ready to explore further. So they have a lot of marketing tools, because that's really what it is. It's about marketing with the Hour of Code. So they have the Flappy Birds and Frozen and Minecraft, little creative characters that students are used to hearing about and using. But when it comes down to it, it is not about the puzzles. We want to get our kids thinking more deeply, more inspired to be creators and publishers. So it's not about the puzzles. It's about exposing our students to computer science. And that comes down to computational thinking. And the foundation of code.org resources are the unplugged lessons. And the unplugged lessons are the opportunities for teachers to not use technology when teaching computer science. And I know that's probably like, ooh, wow, how does that happen? Well, it's about breaking apart that thinking and that understanding of the concepts. And then students are able to actually put those things together and be able to complete the puzzles and the resources. So some people think our students should learn to code, and we've heard that a lot. Every child should learn to code. And part of why code.org was established is because the founder wanted to be able to provide experiences for all students. No matter where you live, what school you go to, every student should have opportunity to code. But really, it's more about all schools should teach students about computer science and getting them involved in being creators and publishers and producers and being able to basically get into fields where they can help change the world and their environment. And some people think computer science is just about learning technology, when in fact it's about problem solving, creativity, logical thinking, collaboration. Some people think, oh, it's just a vocational skill. You can only do it in the business ed courses or high school or middle school. But in fact, it is foundational. And if the students can get these basic skills, they can transfer that knowledge and that content. They can transfer that knowledge to any content area. And so when we think about what's in it for our kids, we're creating these engaged and curious, playful learners and giving them so they can be informed citizens. And it's all about how can you change the world? How can you create something that there's a problem, there's an issue in your community? How can you create things? And using computer science and coding is a way to open that avenue and that door. So really, what it's really about is computational thinking. So we have these concepts on one side that we want our students to be able to understand and learn. And then we have a different approach through computer science. So instead of algorithms and logic and predicting and analyzing in that formal sense, we allow kids to tinker and play and experiment and create and try to persevere through trying to figure out things and finding out answers to questions that they have. So we're looking at creativity, collaboration, communication, persistence, and of course, problem solving. That's what it's all about. So when we think about what's happening now, we got 60% of our jobs in the future are computing jobs, and 40% are in the other math and science fields. And so what we're finding is only 2% of our students are actually graduating with computer science degrees. So we have a huge gap of individuals and jobs and careers that are not being filled because we do not have enough students with the skills in order to fit those positions. And then when we look at that we have about 15% of that 2%, and only 8% are Hispanic and African American. So we want to make sure that we are addressing that gap. And so we look at Missouri, we got 9,556 jobs open, 852 graduates. So that gap that we need to try to fill. So when I think about how we can do that, we need to be able to provide our students with opportunities where they can experience coding and computer science in fun and engaging ways, which will open up the doors for their opportunities. So here are a few of my favorite coding things, and because it's the holidays, you can probably look at some of these resources that you might want to give to one of your family members, or even provide for your classroom. So here are a few of my favorite coding things. Of course, we have our websites. We have a code.org. We have websites like Scratch, which, let me go back. With code.org, you have 4 different courses, which are over 20 hours of education that you can provide for your students and introducing them to code, including the unplugged lessons. Then we have Scratch, which is a platform where students can be creators. So they can actually create websites. They can create projects, storytelling, all kind of things. And Google CS First has a free kit that you can order and have an after school club or any type of activity that you want to incorporate Scratch in. And we have Codable. So those are free resources that you can use, and you can start with those right away. And then I have some of my other favorite resources. Ozobots is one, and it's a tiny little robot that you can use with just paper. You need blue, green pen, and you draw lines, and it basically will follow the lines, and you actually can incorporate that in order for it to do different things. So as you can see from there, you just draw your lines and it goes through. It also works with the app, and there's different games and puzzles that go along with them. Part of why I do what I do as well is finding ways to not just introduce code as a separate entity, but find ways to incorporate it and connect it to content. Because as you might know, we don't always have time to do some of the fun and creative things, but if you can connect it to content, have a win-win. And plus, if your administrator comes in and sees you with Ozobots and you're not connected to content, you might get in trouble. So one of the quick things that I've done with the Ozobots is, in 2nd grade, they were studying the states of matter. And so we were able to program the Ozobot to go through the different states of matter. They were also studying mapping. So they actually created a map and then programmed the Ozobot, we call him Mr. Oz, to go to different parts of the school. So they're incorporating their social studies and science curriculum and incorporating it with STEM. And so everybody wins. which are really cool robots that you can, cool robot that you can use to navigate challenges and being able to incorporate their whole website that has hundreds of lessons that you can incorporate with your curriculum. And so it works with the app as well as some of the other. Osmo is one of my favorites. I would gear that towards K through 3 students, and the coding portion of Osmo came out, and it is the way to incorporate that physical with the technical portion, so students can have the physical pieces of coding, a picture or from the video, and then they're actually snapping the different components together, and it's attached to the iPad, and it's able to pick up what they're doing. So kids are coding as young as kindergarten, being able to use resources like this. Then I have my Makey Makey. This is another one of my favorites. If you partner Makey Makey with Scratch, all kind of wonderfulness can happen with your students. And so basically it is a creative type of resource where they can build things. They can, as you can see, there's physical components, there's to program something in Scratch and actually make it come to life with everyday objects, even from playing the bongos with pizza and cookies to bananas, or just making musical instruments. There's all kinds of connections you can make with content. Scratch earlier, and pairing that up with Scratch, you can make projects from storytelling to music to sound to just have had students create math games and things like that. So all kind of things you can do with those. And then finally, Little Bits. These are they work with magnets and snap circuits, and you're able to create all kind of projects. One of the things we have to really be able to find time to do is allow our students to create. Allow them to explore their passions, and you can certainly do that with coding and computer science. So you're probably saying, well, oh, you showed all these different things. How can I get started with these resources in my classroom? Well, first of all, I would say start with code.org. It is a completely free website. The resources are free. You can get your students going with that right away, but also look for other grants and free opportunities, especially with some of the resources that I showed as one of my some of my favorite things. You have websites like Tryazon. I was able to get 2 free Ozobots from them. And it's basically just hosting a party and then sharing it out with social media, kind of like how they used to do back in the day with the Tupperware parties, and you get something free. It's kind of like the same thing. Another resource that is very useful is the Innovative Educational Grant. And I personally was a recipient of that grant when I was a classroom teacher. I received $25,000, IMAX and flip cameras and digital cameras and color printers for my students. Another resource that you can use is Donors Choose. And then there's always on social media, if you're on Twitter or if you're on Facebook or Instagram, these organizations and these companies are always giving out free things or discounted resources. The Ozobots and the Makey Makeys were on sale during Black Friday. So you just kind of have to find ways that you can provide these resources for your students. So I would say, what is one thing you are going to do at your school from what you learn? Resources that I show with you really quickly. And I think if you just pick one thing that you're most interested in and get started with that, I think it will open up the door for a lot of other opportunities and resources for your students. I want to also say that I provide free coding workshops for teachers with code.org, and I also bring all of those resources that I shared earlier and let you play around with them. Sometimes teachers just need an opportunity to play. So if you're able to give yourself the opportunity to play, you most likely will want to give your students opportunity to create and share as well. So thank you so much for having me. I know that was quick, and I wanted to kind of show something really quickly and fast so that you can get an idea of the resources that are out there and available. But hopefully it will give you opportunity to explore some of these resources with your classroom.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I want to say a few things, but first I want to remind all of our participants to really search for you online. We have Miss Ed Techie on Twitter. She provides Miss Brown, that is, provides a lot of useful information. I was writing down a lot of different questions and you would just address it in the next slide. So the next question I have, let's just say we are ready to move forward, but we want that tangible free professional development. When is your next opportunity for us to sit down and engage with you so we can help students?
Actually, there's one coming up January 14th at Koch Elementary. So go to my website, Patricia J. Brown coding or / coding, and you can sign up. Also go to code.org and see the different coming up, but February the 14th.
Again, that is January the 14th. I will make sure Mrs. Brown provides me both with her slide as well as the register information so we can add that to this video description when it is archived. Really quick, Mrs. Brown, before we continue with this live chat on Twitter, I do want to say that we have a few different questions. So the first question on Twitter, it goes, speaking of content in a departmentalized structure, how might the ELA/writing teacher incorporate coding? How would you?
Oh, one example would be to use Scratch. We have used Scratch in order for students to actually program a story. So something as simple as they are programming something that they wrote a story out, and they are actually programming the characters to do different parts of their story. Students use Ozobots, where they actually created a physical layout of the setting of their story, and they were able to program the Ozobot to go to different parts of their story. So I think writing is a big part of coding, because a lot of times they need to create a storyboard. They need to be able to plan out what they actually want to create. Starting with Scratch, I think, is one way that they could do that.
Thank you. Thank you for your response. The next question, how would you integrate coding into a kindergarten or first grade classroom where students are still learning to read?
Okay, yes. Different ways, depending on what your budget is. If you have zero budget, which I've been in situations where there was zero budget, I would start with the free resources like code.org or Tinker. Org starts lessons. They have courses that start at course 1, where they're geared specifically for cannot read. And so they have unplugged lessons that go along with the plugged in lessons, where you actually students that they work together, you're out the different puzzles and activities. But I would definitely start with code.org, course 1.
Thank you so much. I'm pretty sure, Mrs. Brown, we can go all night, but I don't want to take away from your January the 14th professional development at Koch Elementary School. And I don't want to take away from the conversation that we will continue to have on Twitter. Before I ask you for your closing comments, I do want to remind everyone that January the 9th, 2017 will be our next Educated Speaker Series. Again, January the 9th, 2017, we will have our Educated Speaker Series. And if you want to start your year off right, being a leader and making a pledge to not only your school, but your whole entire community, as well as your students, please tune in. That will be January the 9th, 2017 at 6:30. All information will be shared via Twitter. So, Mrs. Brown, in a nutshell, what is your closing statements related to tonight's webcast on coding?
Again, thank you for having me tonight. I have tuned in tonight and are interested in bringing coding to your classroom, but I you understand it's not about the puzzles. It's not about it's about introducing our students to computer science and opening up those doors of opportunity that they can go to within any field, align it or connect it to any content, and just giving our students opportunity. I think that is the key thing that I want people to take away is it doesn't take a lot to get started. It can be for any student, whether you are a pre-reader or a advanced student. There's something for every child. And I think we just need to be open and being able to have our students sometimes take the lead and not be ones that have to be in control. Sometimes we have to let our students go. And so I think that if we give our students those opportunities, we are all going to win. And I think that's what we want.
That is certainly what we want. Again, we appreciate Mrs. Brown being tonight's guest. If you are watching this webcast live or if you have it archived, please follow Miss Ed Techie on Twitter. She is outstanding with regards to resources, not just with coding, but being an educational practitioner. From here at the Educated Speaker Series to all of the educators around the world, have a very, very happy holiday season. Make sure you get a lot of rest. And until next time, please continue to love yourself and love your students. Thank you.